good afternoon and welcome. I'm Ed Bogish. I'm the Executive Director of SyracuseCoE. We're New York State Center of Excellence in Environmental and Energy Systems. It's my pleasure and thrilled to welcome you all to our monthly Research and Technology Forum, which, as you know, this month we're celebrating Global Entrepreneurship Week. I wonder how many people have already. This is this broad program of events at Syracuse University all week. Has anybody already been to one, or is it all right? So So welcome here. And I'll point out that there are a broad number of programs the rest of the week. I'm pleased to introduce the introducer. Tim Labreche, who's the Associate Director for Technology Commercialization here at SyracuseCoE. Tim's been with us for about 4 years. I just want to give you some of Tim's background in case you don't already know him, so that you'll know that he's a wonderful resource for SyracuseCoE and for the community. He got his undergraduate degree at Purdue in civil engineering. Then he got a master's degree in Virginia Tech in environmental engineering. And he worked as a civil and environmental engineer on projects for a consulting engineering firm, projects including assessing water quality and impact on clams in the Chesapeake. So then his wife decided to get a PhD at the University of Michigan, so he wound up in Ann Arbor, and when he was there, it wasn't a good time for civil and environmental engineers to find a job. So somehow he found a job with a startup company that had an idea of commercializing a technology coming out of the university to produce electricity via a chemical reaction in a fuel cell. So this startup company, you were employee number...
That was official employee number 1.
Official employee number 1.
A running battle between myself and a good friend who was a contractor then became a hire. Yeah,
so they were the founders, right? So they were like zero and
they were zero.
So this company called Ultra Electronics.
Well, the bottom, yeah, it was adaptive materials. Adaptive materials.
Had an idea again for a fuel cell that would run on propane and be used for applications that required portable power. So once upon a time there was a program from DARPA called Palm Power, and the idea was in your hand you should have something that would generate 50 watts. And so this company that Tim joined, so the civil and environmental engineer became a fuel cell engineer, and then ultimately director of R&D for a company that scaled up to 70 people before it was acquired, and produced and commercialized a fuel cell that now flies on a Lockheed Martin drone, powered by essentially camp stove fuel for long periods.
Yeah.
And so Tim then found his way to Syracuse 5 years ago, came to a SyracuseCoE symposium, and that's how we met. So we had an intellectual collision, and we're thrilled to have him on our staff. It's been a great resource for us and for the community. And I'm going to now invite Tim to take the floor and guide us through this program. Tim Labreche.
Thank you. Wow, yeah, that's quite a memory there. I was just thinking I have nothing else to say. No. Thank you. It's been a real joy working with Tammy and everybody else on the team was putting together this program. We're looking at the names, and after a while, it's sunk in of the involvement I've had or connection with each company, and in a period of time, what happens here. But as you leave tonight, for example, be sure to look up and see some beautiful illumination by that Joe will be talking about later. And working with Josh and I have spent a lot of evenings after work going through engineering aspects. It's been a real fun to work with. And Dr. Luke and I perhaps had the most intellectual collisions of all with early grad school and never from that Line 4 program. So it's been a real joy to work with them and the team here. So this, like Ed's already covered, what we really like to do is create these connections between faculty, students, team, and help push energy and environmental systems forward. And so I'm happy we have the folks here to hear from our entrepreneurs that we have in the room. And with that, I'll go to Josh. And so Josh Habib is going to be our first speaker. Josh is the founder and chief executive officer of SparkCharge, and he holds a bachelor's degree in economics from Syracuse University with a focus on environmental economics. And he's considered about how much more time you have to go in your master's degree?
6 months, 3
6 months, a couple hours. That's right. So he's ready to go in even deeper into his company and more time, so free distractions. But it's focusing on information science with a CAS in data science. So Josh is charged with product development and the day-to-day operations, the spirit and the soul behind SparkCharge for sure, and including establishing relationships with electric vehicle owners. His networking, he has no fear when it comes to networking. Let's put it that way. And so Josh is the EV owner himself, willing to expose his car to all kinds of use in the name of development, science, and research. And he's been in the industry for the past 3 years, so we've got a great start. And that, Josh, come on up.
All right. So, as Tim mentioned, I run a company called SparkCharge. I guess tonight I'm going to be taking you through the entrepreneurial journey as a student, starting from point A where we started to where we are now. I never really thought about becoming an entrepreneur just about my entire time as an undergrad until I met Professor Wilcoxon in the economics department. And I took his class, which was environmental economics. Through there, I kind of learned about this growing clean tech, clean energy market that was emerging at the time. And I was really, really, really fascinated about electric vehicles, about, how air quality is affecting us and things like that. I first got my introduction to entrepreneurship. This is kind of a funny story. I followed a program here on campus called Ideas. They were, I think, part of the Raymond Van Dron program, which is no more. They had an event in the engineering school, but I was kind of conflicted being a student. I didn't want to skip class, and I didn't want to, go to, and I wanted to go to this event. So I ultimately ended up skipping class to go to this event, which kind of kicked off my entrepreneurial journey. That's kind of where it all began. I met Tony, Dee, Stacy, met Shomar there, and that's where it all began. So SparkCharge originated as a company that wanted to install electric vehicle charging stations every 40 miles across the thruway from Albany to Buffalo. At the time, electric vehicles were pretty stranded. They only got around 80 miles in good weather. And essentially, if you owned a Nissan Leaf here in Syracuse, it was really, really, really hard for you to make a round-trip journey to Buffalo or Rochester. So we started out doing that. We went through the student sandbox. That's where we met Braden, Seth Mulligan, John Liddy, and they kind of helped us. How do I phrase it? They helped us, become entrepreneurs. They introduced us to a business canvas model. They introduced us to what an Excel document really meant, things like that, and we learned a lot. Going through that program, we were able to go into the Clean Tech Center. That's when we got our first dose of funding, and that's where the real knowledge and journey began. We originally, upon wanting to install charging stations on the New York State Thruway, pitched to the New York State Thruway and ultimately realized that they had no interest in electric vehicles. They had no interest in clean tech. I remember, and this kind of just goes off of how big the market's grown, I remember pitching to the deputy director of the New York State Thruway and talking to him about electric vehicles and telling him, great program that we were going to do and the stations that we had ordered. And after pitching to him, the room was kind of dead silent, and he just goes, "So what's an electric vehicle?" That was a good awakening that the market was really, 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 really early. We were really early in the company. Eventually, we heard back from them, and their response was that they really needed to focus on the incoming snow and salting the roads, and that electric vehicles wouldn't be a priority for a while. From there, being a young entrepreneur, I had to make what I consider probably one of the hardest decisions at the time, and that was to pivot my company. I pivoted. I came up with an idea on looking at these charging stations that were in the tech garden, and I said, well, why can't I take one of these with me? Why does the charging station have to be pole mounted? Why do I have to go to it? If electricity is all around us, why can't I charge my car anywhere and anytime? And so that's where the journey began. I started researching what type of batteries were out there, battery materials, you know, how the cars work, the onboard charging systems, the different make and models, and I really got into the scientific side. Going from a company that was getting all charging stations pre-made to now becoming a charging station maker was it was a huge, huge, huge jump for us. But I don't regret it. It essentially taught me a lot. From there, we went on to essentially, you know, feel out the idea. We obviously worked with Tim, worked with John, still working with the Tech Garden, and we've grown ever since. So, questions?
Anyone have any questions for Josh? We're happy to do them right now, and everybody do this. We'll have a panel discussion. So, Tammy.
So I just wondered if you could talk a little bit about some of the lessons that you learned, some of the things you wish someone had told you 5 years ago, 6 years ago. What's important and what's not important?
Let's see. Something I wish somebody told me 5 or 6 years ago. You're not going to become a millionaire in 3 to 6 months. It's something that I hear a lot of times when you're talking to new entrepreneurs on campus or students approach you about becoming an entrepreneur. Usually the first thing out of their mouth is, I got this great idea, within 3 months I'm going to be a millionaire, just wait and see. And it's something that I think I thought originally, I think every young entrepreneur thinks, but it's really just not true. The process of growing a company is, man, it's so time consuming, it's so daunting that, you know, to even think about getting it done in 3 to 6 months is almost unbelievable. I remember, you know, even thinking about getting to our first sale, I remember having an argument with John Liddy. John Liddy said, you're not going to sell a product for 6 months, and I told him I'll sell it in 6 days. And, you know, here we are. So that was a big one. Taking your time, running the business. Another one would be getting good talent. So one of the things as a student entrepreneur that you encounter a lot is you don't have a lot of money to go out and pay for talent. So a lot of times you usually try to gather, you know, your buddies, or you try to gather what resources you can find on campus, recommendations from other students. But I found that if you can get somebody who's really good, even if you're paying them a little bit, paying somebody something will give you 10 times better work than if you're paying nothing. So that's something that I would avoid. Paying for good talent and moving the company along faster. Those are two good.
I'm just curious. So the product is a extra battery that you bring along on the car?
Yep, essentially, yes. A really fast battery that you bring along on the car.
What do you mean by fast battery?
Here we go. All right. So, so there's different levels to charging an electric car. There's level 1, level 2, level 3. Level 1 being your standard wall outlet. Level 2 being 240 volts, usually coming directly from the grid. These are the ones you see usually outside at the mall. And then there's level 3. That's fast charging. It should give your car about 80% of the charge in 30 minutes. We are doing basically a fraction of level 3 charging. So we're calling electric vehicle owners to take level 3 charging work and then charge.
Josh, so on, your journey there, through the Sandbox, the Clean Tech Center, is there something that you really needed or still need that's been the most difficult to get? Is it money? Is it resources? Is it talent?
Sure. So, obviously money is always a goal, but I guess that's something I've learned too. When I first started out, everybody wanted to raise money. That was the goal. I'm going to get from the venture capitalists and raise money. I think timing and money are more important. So instead of going out and applying for every accelerator, actually take your time engaging where you're at and then applying and getting those money, getting money. As far as where we're at right now, I think we're kind of in like a talent race. So we're trying to find really good talent here on campus. Specifically, we're looking for an electric engineer to join the team. So if anybody has those connections, please reach out. I think that's about it. Right now, we're really looking for talent, not money.
Hi.
you, Josh. A technical question out of pure interest. A lot of times manufacturers are trying to balance fuel economy with the weight of the vehicle, and then with your, tier 3 solution for electric charging, does it add substantial weight to the vehicle?
No. Right now we're shooting for a weight anywhere between 35 to 45 pounds for our stations. So, I mean, essentially it would come in if you have like a truckload of groceries, which shouldn't hurt your range.
Fantastic. And just a follow-on question out of general interest, have you worked with any of the manufacturers of electric vehicles in the direction that you've been going, or have you been focused more as a consumer aftermarket opportunity as a product?
More as an aftermarket product. We wouldn't be opposed to joining up with a manufacturer to help do this along with us.
I'll have to talk to you about that after.
Great.
Josh, you told the story right from the beginning when you were torn between going to class and cutting class. So, you have reflections on that decision that you made? You wish you still went to class?
Really good professor whose class I skipped and actually loved his class. I wouldn't say I was torn between it. That was essentially, it's funny because it was one of those classes where you sit in the, like the big auditoriums, and I just happened to be sitting in the front. So I had to walk by him and like everybody else on the way out, skip it. So, no, I don't regret it at all. I think it was the right choice. It was essentially the moment that kicked off my journey. So, no.
But you said you didn't know that you hadn't envisioned being an entrepreneur. So what was the call? How did you feel called to leave that class?
So I guess the call was actually going to that event, the ideas event that was held in engineering school, and talking to a bunch of other entrepreneurs at the time, people I had never met. I remember I waited until after the event was over, and I talked to Tony, Dee, and Stacy, and I told them, hey, I have this great idea. And from there, what literally kicked off the entrepreneurial journey was meeting with Tony every 3 days and, beginning to write a business plan and beginning to flesh out the idea, and then, going over the basics. What's the problem you're solving? How many electric vehicle owners are there? Doing that consistently for about 6 months was the beginning. So meeting with a mentor every 3 days and hashing out the idea was the beginning of the entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah. Do you have a product right now, or do you?
We're hoping to make a really big release in December.
December.
Yeah. Just won't give it a 5, but it is.
You'll have a chance to, if you think of a few more questions, you'll have a chance to get back with Josh when we do a little panel discussion later on. Thanks, Josh. Our next speaker is Dr. Y.Y. Luke, or he usually just goes by Luke. And Dr. Luke and I had a great chance to get to know each other very intensively. Wow, it's been I can't believe how many years it's been, maybe 4 years. One of the first things I did when I started working along with the 3P Center of Excellence was to a mentor for his National Science Foundation I-Corps team. And through that experience, along with his graduate, Andy Basner, we went through a process of discovery, trying to find a minimum viable product for his technology. And we spent a lot of time debating, arguing, looking, doing lots of calls, doing the 10 to 15 or so customer discovery events each week, and really learned a lot. And I'm really excited to see that he's now taking up residence in the Biotechnology Accelerator just right over that way. So if you have questions about what it's like on the inside and to work there, you can check out Dr. Luke later on. And he has this formal bio here, which I'll get to, but I was just thinking about the experience working with him, and I had a mentor and the owner of the founder of the company. He used to say, he had a professor who said, when you're thinking about things, think like a neutrino. I was like, okay, what does that mean? Because I wasn't skilled in nuclear engineering and so on. But then I started thinking about it, and I said, what it means, I think, is that when you have an idea, often as an engineer, you want to just kind of run down a line when serially thinking about But what he meant, I think, was that when you have an idea, you strike something else, and that creates a chain reaction. You have 2 new ideas that come out, and those 2 ideas become 4 ideas. And those collisions go out and keep expanding and expanding. And so from that, I talk about the idea generation that we had in experience those. So one of the things that's really admire about Dr. Luke is his ability to generate ideas and create these new thoughts from one thing to another. And so his formal description is he's a professor in the chemistry department at Syracuse University. He's been there since 2004, and he's spun out a few technologies out of his laboratory, and he's provided a variety of advisory roles with other biotechnology companies. And shortly, probably 4 or 5 years ago, he founded LifeUnit, so LifeUnit LLC, and they developed chemical innovations for controlling bacterial-resistant diseases and controlling other problems. And LifeUnit has won, of course, the NSF I4 grant, and he is the acting chief scientific officer for technical operations at LifeUnit. Dr. Luke.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's really a pleasure to come here. I wish to first off say that early on when I joined Syracuse University in 2004, I actually got several grants from Center of Excellence here dealing with the water quality. There are a lot of work still going on, but we get into much deeper in terms of controlling specific bacteria by molecules. Right? So I have quite a history with Center of Excellence. And then later on, there's this National Science Foundation has this program specifically to cultivate faculties to do business. And one of their belief is that professors know nothing about how to do business, which is probably true. So we won't need a mentor, right? Even when we're professors at the time. So I'm very fortunate at the time. It's difficult to find a mentor. And Tim Abati was generous enough to be working with us. And because of him, it got funded. It's a small program that got funded. And from there, we spent a trip to, and me and him and another graduate student at the time spent a significant amount of time to talk about and learn about how to do business from a program that I carried out by NSF Foundation, National Science Foundation, and we do learn a lot. One of the key issues there is that the idea and the product are completely 2 different things, especially for professors. They are in touch with very deep sciences often, and their imagination of products may not have a market at all. Right? So we've done a lot of cold calling and getting in touch with the real potential customers. And eventually, we do discover that the technology at the time that we have is really novel at the level of fundamental science. It's really interesting. In terms of turning into a product, we hit several roadblocks. One of the major ones is that the market is either, the price of the product will either be too small, right? It's difficult, or if it's big, it's just not yet ready. So eventually we did not continue with that product. But what happened is that by the way, so a little bit about myself. I'm a professor in organic chemistry. I do not do just fundamental science. Everything that I did has touch with applications. And since then, we have developed several molecules that are very promising in controlling bacterial activity. One of the reasons that I get into this, in addition to just working on an interface between fundamental science and application, is that both of my PhD advisor and my postdoc advisor, they are successful entrepreneurs. They have companies that start having a huge payroll and also have a product on the market. Right? I'm just going to show you probably only 3 slides. Some of this may be a little bit too technical. But nevertheless, there's issues with bacteria, and in the recent decades, bacteria start developing resistance to existing antibiotics. And that's a problem that has currently no solution. Right? One of the imagination is that this is a cartoon of a bacteria, and on the bacteria they have this hair called pili that grows out, and this pili can expand in and out. And this is the pili that are responsible for attaching to a human host. All right, the biologists come up with the idea that they are going to use this these are actually proteins. And use these proteins, they are toxic, to inject into humans to develop a vaccine so that you will have a memory of the bacteria. And when the infection happens again, the immune system of the human body will kick in and start dealing with it. But this test is never succeeded. Not even go to the preclinical trial for decades. There are reasons that it does not work. And in my laboratory, by accident, we discover molecules that bind to the monomer of this pretty disappearing proteins and start changing a lot of the bacterial activity. It's a small molecule. Now this is about 150,000 in terms of molecular unit, and ours, one small molecule is only about 500 in the size of it. So it's a much more powerful approach, and we can change the structure to target different diseases. And all bacteria have this pretty protein, and we just change our molecules, and we can control it. And because this approach to control the bacteria is different from the conventional drug approach. The conventional drug approach always requires the molecule to go inside the bacteria. And that's where the drug resistance develops, because the bacteria will start building up a pump that eventually pump out the drug. And because this molecule actually works on the surface of the bacteria, that resistance mechanism is not going to be valid. And this, the protein crystal structure that's developed by biologists, they are different proteins. They are the same class of proteins from the hair of different bacteria, different mutants, different species, different strains. And the idea is that they all share a common structure. They call this a beta sheet, and these are outer helix. But they are all different in terms of details of the structure. The global structure is the same. So our approach that designs small molecules to target different ones is going to be valid because they share a common set of structure units. But the details are different, so we can tailor our small molecules to target them. I'm going to see some of this. There's a little bit more stories behind it, but there are several companies out there that trying to do something similar of a molecule that are naturally produced by the bacteria. And they find all these applications, they don't know what's going on at all. Right? They do not know what their molecule is doing. Or they only know that it has some signs that it's controlling the bacterial activities, and it has some signs that they can do all kinds of things. And we start having the knowledge of how this molecule works. For example, they don't even know there's a small molecule called rhamnolysis, a small molecule that does all this. They do not know which protein is binding to on the bacteria, and we know, and we haven't published that yet. So this is a brief description of that molecule that are out there by the company, and they do not know clearly what they wanted to do with it, and they do not know how it works. But they know that there seems to have a lot of functions. There's a lot of applicable functions. Our molecules are not this one, are synthetic. These are naturally extracted from bacteria. Ours are synthetic molecules that look different than this and has very specific function that we can control. But we know the protein target now, we don't know, and then we can control different structures that target different proteins. And when you bind onto, this is the small molecule, bind onto the protein receptor, the protein structure will change and induce a series of events to change in the cell signaling of the bacteria and change bacteria activity. Our current market looking at is one of them is cystic fibrosis, the other one is growth treatment. The number 3 is the anti-steam treatment. We are focusing on these two first, and then on this region, and we'll just start looking at this particular application. These are people who have done the work. Currently, these are the teams we have. I have been on the scientific advisory board for 2 companies out there. And one particular one is called Autobahn at New Jersey. This is the CEO, and he really liked the way I work. We work really well, and he's very interested in working with my company together. He has come up to today a couple times. Actually, he's going to come up here again on December 10th. He's not officially working with the company because his current position is the CEO of this company. Yeah, he raised about probably $12 million there. It's not allowing him to work with me officially, so he is just a coach. And he also brings his son in to later on his son probably will take a business position. One Tai is a person who runs a lot of small business brands. Has more than 14 years of doing that, maybe 13, right? And he and I are working closely together. He operates on day-to-day operation. I go over the clients. So I think the path of me coming to do here is rather different than what Josh had. He had a business idea that are, in my view, from my end, looking at it, is rather mature. From my approach there, I have the science that may or may not be able to generate a product. It's always a question, when should I get started? But I always have an interest in doing it because I have seen it. I've seen two of my advisors doing it. So the first time I get into it in the biology, it's a technology that it's not really bad, but it has some difficulties. And this one is the one that going the phone now is going quite exciting, quite interesting. So that's how I had to come to this point.
Question?
Yeah, go ahead.
I have a number of questions, but I'll just start with one of them. So, as a professor at Syracuse University, but also as a researcher and now a founder of a company, how do you weigh the need to protect IP versus the need to publish to earn tenure?
So first of all, I thank you. Well, I could have started that before. I started the company before that, but I didn't do anything about it. That's not because of the tenure issue. So to answer your question rather quickly, in this specific case, there's no conflict. Because a lot of the fundamental science we publish is not going to cause damage to the product. The product development versus the intellectual property has quite a distance. We need both. The intellectual property, the publication, inject a lot of value to the science, right? But for it to be a product, it's quite far away. What would be a typical example? To give an example of the Nobel Prize winning the green fluorescent protein, they publish a lot of papers, they win the Nobel Prize, that protein starts generating a lot of money academically and industry because they are critically important for discovering diseases and curing them. But the publication has no conflict with those. There's very rare cases of such conflicts. People worry about it, but I have not heard about a case for which publication hurt the company. Not really in this case. For example, one of the things that the company needs to do with this molecule is the safety data. Those are not of publication value, and if we do it, it will be off the company money, and we will not publish it, and you will not hurt the case because it's entirely done by company money, company people. Nobody get hurt. Anything my graduate students do, the publication will not be delayed at all. Any other? You have other questions?
Oh yeah, I do. I don't want to steal anyone else's time. So, kind of my next question is, what would be the business model for this type of company? Is it to kind of develop it and then protect it and sell it off, so a quick flip, or do you see turning it into into a pharmaceutical type of company and coming up with multiple different products?
Right. Both are feasible, but it's not feasible for me for the second version. So if I were to build a company that has human resource to develop the clinical trial, it would be just too expensive. So this kind of drug development is not possible for a small company to go through FDA approval. And for our molecule, the FDA approval will be much less of a magnitude than a regular drug because it's going to be external use. But nevertheless, even so, the idea is we are going to build up a company that will be attract partnerships from big pharmaceutical company. And if that doesn't happen, then we will start considering developing a product. But the product may have limitations that if we were to use internally, for example, for cystic fibrosis, that the person has to inherit into their lung, it may be difficult. It may be too expensive to FDA. But there are, for example, burn wound heals. If you develop a cream to apply it, that's actually possible for us to develop it. But the idea we think is likely going to be partnering with either so often a pharmaceutical company, or we are not willing to sell it, but partner with them. That's our plan and path.
What kind of testing would you need to do? Is it going to be trials with animals and then later people?
Right. So the first part is the part related to what I call fundamental science, understanding what's going on with this agent. A lot of new chemicals out there they don't know, and they rush to the market. The first part is really understanding. The second part, to answer your question, is pretty standard. You have to do toxicity test on mammalian cell. After that, you have to do an animal model. Start with mice, and then perhaps with dogs. And then you will be going into clinical trial. And then at the level of clinical trial, it really depends on what specific application you are doing. If it's burn wound, if it's skin treatment, it will be much less stringent than inhaling into the lung. Right? And if you ask me exactly what experiment needs to be done there, I don't know. But if you go to a pharmaceutical company, 9 of 10 people, they don't know it. That's why you need to hire people who are, you need to talk to FDA first to decide what to be done. It's not, there's no standard protocol or standard requirement out there. And
so I want to ask a question about your experience with the NSF I-Corps. And for folks who are in the room,
yeah.
So this is a program that the National Science Foundation has established. It's like, it's a Peace Corps for innovation for faculty members and graduate students to get and the basic idea is lots of faculty members across the country are working on basic science, and we should infect them with the idea of creating a company. So was that experience of your being in the I-Corps, was that valuable for you to actually then start a company? Was there a cause and effect?
It's certainly valuable. First of all, they treat you just as anybody else. You are not a professor there. They treat you the same as your graduate student. and they may treat your mentor a little bit higher. In fact, in the laboratory, remember, there is a faculty there so pissed off by the question and the treatment by NSF, he quit the program. Right? What's the reason he got so angry about it? They keep requiring that the student needs to do the presentation. Yes. And he doesn't want to. He says he wants to do the presentation, and they attack him a couple of times, and decided it's not going to go anymore. And he has to return the money. So, in terms of detailed operation of the business, I think it's useful because they actually give a very specific example of a team of, I think, at Stanford. They have a fancy technology on DNA, RNA technology. Essentially, when they go out there, there's no need for that technology, but something they do with the instrument. How do they treat the sample? Turns out it has a need, and then they just turn around and pursue that. There's no science, essentially, in their technology that succeeded. It happens in academic and industry. There's a distance. The example of protein is another case. Perhaps relativity is another case. It's extremely important for people to be able to go to space, but in order for it to develop into a product, it's really far away between the two. I hope this is not the case. This is something that I can immediately test on people. Tim, you want to add anything to?
Oh, I'm done. I'll leave it to the audience. Any other question in the back here?
Yeah.
Last question.
Sure. Okay.
How did you think of the idea to let's coat the bacteria instead of pump the antibiotics into the bacteria?
Okay. No, we never think of that. We the development of the story is like this. We are working with biofilm, and in the conference that I went for, people have talked to biofilm. It's very difficult to remove. Detergent doesn't remove it. Detergent that washes dishes does not remove it. Bleach does not remove it. And I find it appalling that detergent doesn't remove it. Detergent washes grease away, and biofilm created by bacteria are organic matters that can be washed away. So I work, but there's one partial one does work. And at the time, we still do not know the mechanics of things, creating some fancy water structures. And then we go into it, and essentially I start realizing, by doing a lot of research, it's targeting the membrane protein. So that's never a design at the beginning. It's later on we discover that it's targeting this kind of protein on the surface of the bacteria. Then I start creating that this is a really good selling point. It's of really good value to target, to remove, to battle the issue of drug resistance. So it's never engineered.
So now I have to ask, you were very gracious in recognizing the early support that you got from SyracuseCoE. My recollection is we funded at least 2 projects with you, and at least one of them was about biofilms. So was there any connection between our early support and what you're reporting right now?
Oh, I think so. Perhaps let me say this. As frank and blunt as I will be, I dare to, is that there's no intellectual connections, but the money that enable us to study this allow us to take a step forward to study something more. If we do not have that money, we do not know how to get started. You never get started at the beginning. But I welcome to, if you are receptive to studying water quality and controlling bacteria, I would love to look at the opportunity. Yeah, Jen?
Similar to the question I asked Josh, for other faculty who have ideas and who are thinking about, really dabbling in the idea of creating a venture, a company, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, okay. So this is the part that I really admire people like Josh, because he just get in there and do it, right? For faculty, for me at least, for many, we need a connection. This is a country, unlike a poor country that you can do many things on your own. Here you need connection. You need different kind of people to make things happen. You have the technology, that's not enough. So for any faculty who want to do it, I would recommend that you really have good connections, really good ones. I have heard cases, of course I'm going to not name names, that faculty start teaming up with a business partner, and that business partner takes 2/3 of the company right off the bat. And yeah, it's okay, you get further, but then once you get further, if there's a disagreement, the company will not go anymore because the people protect each other's interests, and the decision to make that will benefit the company is in conflict with each individual, then you cannot go anymore. So for any faculty who want to do it, I would say you really need to know good business people, you really need to have a good connection, or you are really good, you are really a superstar faculty, you control everything. You buy off everybody. Otherwise, you really need good networking. I was lucky enough that I become the scientific advisory board for 2 companies out there, and I start understanding a lot of things. And I'm not going to tell you the percentage, but the negotiation between me and them is a number I've never heard of. It's not that I want to occupy a large percentage of the company, just that it leaves a large percent of the company there for you to attract further investors would really enable things to go further. For companies that have taken off share among the early people, majority of the company, I have not yet heard of a case that are successful. So actually I heard cases that really just get stuck and cannot move forward. Thanks.
Really glad that Dr. reminded us about that story at I4, the professor who melted down and there. He's not joking about it. One of the things they NSF invests a lot of resources in their faculty members, so of course they don't want to suddenly change every one of them into, leave their research positions and move out, but to build that, to build entrepreneurial lead, in graduate students to start thinking in that mindset. And so it really did happen. A professor was speaking, and they said, okay, next week, your lead, your student must speak. Great. Next week, we're doing that, was chastised with us. And next week, okay, it was something like that, got there. The third time around, the person started speaking and said, no, stop, and just basically killed the mic. instead of just, set them down and they, the students, that was it. It was the end of the story. So they really do work to break down barriers. And the other point we raised, which was, about getting out of the building, challenging, getting new exposures, getting exposed to customer discovery. And so much about the I-Core experience, not about pushing the science at all, really. It's more about training people into entrepreneurial ideas and real mindset thinking. So with that, thanks again.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
So I know that there's at least two professors here that you will go through the I-Core program. Was there more? Is there a community of them?
Oh, there are two. So far, maybe someone else knows if there's others, but I don't think so. And they've grown nodes around the country as well. We were one of when we went, there was one in California, and there was one in Atlanta, and now there's in Ann Arbor. There's maybe two or three other nodes around the home locations. All right, moving on, our next speaker and final speaker is Joe Casper, who's the founder and chief technology officer at SyracuseCoE, which is was purchased just about a year ago by I don't know if your title is still of Ephesus, but either you got Ephesus Live. So, Joe, one of the first companies that I became aware of, Joe doesn't know this, was when I came sort of wandering around networking. Was at an event here at the CUB, and they were announcing the lighting overhead in the high bay. And you've heard pivots already, and I know that was, there's an announcement about partnerships that were related to that. And then somewhere between now and where they are, the success they've had now, it was a pretty good pivot away from that style lighting to stadium lighting. And so I imagine Joe may be saying something about that as well. You've heard about it already tonight as well. And so another thing that's happened along the way, we've collaborated with them on the demos, but also in terms of developing stadium lighting. And so we worked together along with RPI, the Lighting Resource Center, on a NYSERDA work and related to doing outdoor lighting. And there was a moment when we were doing a quick test of some things where we had one of our graduate students now who's climbing, all geared up in his climbing gear, securing things upstairs for a temporary lighting test. And they turned that light on. It was like daylight outside. There was this blind belt, and a blind is probably not a word we like to have. It's amazing, glorious light. Shining on the parking lot, and not just our lot, but across the street, to the street, beyond the street, over to the Korean restaurant around the corner over there. And it was like, it was daylight, but it was bright and brilliant. I was like, wow, this little lamp is doing all this. And then so we were adjusting things back and forth. They were over here on our gravel lot, which is now paved. Thank you. Hope you enjoyed the pavement. And Joe and Amy were there along with Jeff Schuster, really happy. Just smile like this permanent smile you get on your face. You just can't get it wiped off. And we learned, we couldn't tell us why, but we learned later they were very, very, very happy related to the results apparently, which allowed them to move forward towards the Super Bowl. So that's the backstory. Joe's, I don't know what else to say, but Joe brought Ephesus 30 years of experience and career achievements, including work with industries like Motorola, Fairchild Semiconductor, Lockheed Martin, and part of the startup team for WaferTech, which they did with a Washington State-based semiconductor facility, grew to 1,400 plus employees and over $1 billion in revenue. And as you probably know by now, was the company, Ephesus company, was the first company to light a Super Bowl with the LED lighting. I know they've grown from there, and now you're starting to see LED lighting everywhere. And if you didn't see it this year, you can tell the story, but integrating lighting into the actual experience, the sporting experience. So it makes and Ed shared this, and now I would need to share this clip of some of the stadium lights in a football stadium are actually flashing and going off, which has never been done before. So really great innovation, and I know it's an inspiration to all of us. So, Joe, come on.
Thank you.
It is a story that's exciting because everyone part of this story is I look in this room here and it's a book that on Ephesus, and I turn the page and I see faces in here, people I dealt with, anywhere from starting the company up in the tech garden to people who invested into the company, to actually people who helped buy my product, to actually go through this transition selling of the company. So for me, I've gone through the whole transition of a startup to actually the transition of a selling company. And we had a vision about that when I started. We knew exactly what we were going to do. We had an entry and we had an exit starting the company. And it wouldn't have happened, it wouldn't have never happened if it wasn't the great resources that we had right here in Syracuse and the relationships that I think I heard talk about. I was born and brought up here in Syracuse, and I left in 1984. As you said, I did undergrad and graduate school at RPI, chemical engineering, electrical engineering. And I said, there's no way I'd stay here in Syracuse for high technology. I don't want to work at GE. No way. My dad worked there for 42 years. So I chased the semiconductor. I chased the technology. And I chased it all the way to 2006. And I wanted to come back home. And I did a startup when we talked about a semiconductor company. We built most of the chips for NVIDIA, Motorola. I was part of the team, part of the executive team. So when I came back to run the research group at Lockheed Martin, I got bored very quickly running it at Lockheed. So I was decided that I made a decision, and the decision was I had to put my whole heart and go at it all out. You can't start a company without your whole heart into it. You can't work somewhere and have one foot in, one foot out. And with the help of interviewing, I was able to secure a space at the Tech Garden, thanks to Linda. And it was a process back then that Linda would go through the interview and say, okay, who is capable of getting into the Tech Garden? And I made it. I made it through. And then she introduced me to, Ed and to Tammy. Hey, Joe, there's a way to build a business plan. There's a way to get money, grant money, and getting to know that. And they introduced me to Lee Davis, and then Lee Davis also introduced me to other people, and I started to reach out into the community. And it was that relationship and those funding that I got. My first grant was $50,000 to develop an LED chip. Who thought we could develop an LED chip right here in Syracuse? A technology like that, semiconductor. I never thought about it. And using the resources from RPI, from the Syracuse Center of Excellence here, and everybody, we were able to build an LED chip, and we actually turned it on and lit it with the help of this team right here in Syracuse. And from that, we built a product, and was the first purchase was right here in this building. And then the second purchase was over at the Honeywell water treatment facility. But the lights are still here, still running. And actually, I'm very proud because next month we celebrate a very inspirational time. We now have passed our 5-year warranty. No failures.
You want to buy it back?
I drove by there last night and told the team that the original people are still with us. We're going to have a big party because 5 years have come and gone. The installation at the Baldwin's was our first installation at the, and Annie probably remembers it because, again, it was part of a national grid incentive program we got. We got some refund from it, but we built a light and we put them into behind Sammy Malone, behind the Beeville Diner. We put 17 lights up into a retrofit, into a street light. We never have had a failure. Those lights have been running ever since. And I look at all the lights around me burning out every night, and those lights are still running. So let me talk a little bit about the company, how we started the company, where we've gone, because it's a story, and I think it's a story I pinch myself every day because, you have an idea, and have an idea to actually make a product, and to make a product that you're creating revenue, and then to be profitable within like 3 years, and then to take the company where we're making millions and millions and millions of dollars and to be able to sell it and have a choice of companies I want to sell it to. It's just, I pinch myself. And it started right here in Syracuse, and it's growing rapidly, and I'll share a little bit of how fast we're growing still today. It just blows my mind every day. Before I came here, and Lee was showing me some crazy videos, and I'm like, wow, it's cool things that they're doing with our lives. So let's look. So let me tell you a little bit about the market first and why we got into it. Back in around 2010, when we started the company, like I said, in the semiconductor, we started to work on chips, and we're using the chips. Basically, we're looking at wind turbines, we're using high-powered gallium nitride on diamond substrate technology. we opened our eyes, and Linda kept saying to us, guys, you got to have a business plan.
I think
Yeah, we have business.
there's times I thought you were gonna kill me.
I know. We don't need no stinking business plan. I want to do R&D. I want to just play in this technology. And Linda said, you got to put a business plan together. And we had this chip that we made that made the brightest light. And we didn't realize at that time that that was the brightest light that we could make out of an LED, out of that technology. We knew it was great for wind turbine power management. It's still a great technology for it. But look at the market. We went out and did do our homework, Linda, and it was an $80 billion market that we saw. And we were amazed, and this was way back in here when it was only a, maybe a $1 or $2 billion market when we started getting into it. It's huge. And we didn't realize how big it was. So in 2010, we founded the company. Again, we founded in the Tech Garden. We stayed particularly focused on high output lighting. We wanted to enable that technology, that LED chip that we created from the first grant that we got here at the Syracuse Center of Excellence. We wanted to enable that and build the brightest light. Our goal has always been to build the brightest light possible on the market. So we took a systems approach to solid state lighting. None of us knew anything about lighting. If somebody said to me, how much light comes out of a light fixture, and how do you measure it, and what's the measurement? 5 years ago, I didn't even know that. What's a foot candle? I didn't know that. I had no clue. We were solid state semiconductor guys, Lockheed Martin guys that were building unmanned vehicles, radar systems, semiconductor systems. So we started up, and we formed Ephesus Technology. We went from Ephesus Technologies, where we were doing a lot of technology development. We incorporated in 2012. In 2012, we brought on some very high-level folks to help my wife, Amy. She came from Lockheed with her man, and Mike Lorenz, who was CEO of Destiny USA. And since then, it's been a story where I was able to bring people right out of Lockheed. Like I said, they weren't one foot in, they're one foot out. Chris Nolan has been with me ever since. Chris says, if I'm going to join, I'm going to go join all the way. And we started to form a team. And we had a team of about 6, 8 of us in the Tech Garden, all the way up to about a year ago. And I will talk about Eaton Corporation here in a little bit as I move into it. But we were acquired 1 year ago by Eaton Corporation. I'll talk a little bit more about that. So the other part I want to mention here is the other market that we looked at. This was amazes me back then. The Internet of Things. The Internet of Things in 2010 and 15. This is a graph of the billions of devices that are being connected. There's 50 billion smart objects. There's rapid adoption. It's 5 times faster than electricity and the telephone today. I don't know if you know that. So here it is. The Internet of Things, LED lighting are the 2 fastest growing market segments anywhere right now in the world. If you're going to get into the market, these are the 2 sections you want to put the Internet of Things. Why? It's because everybody wants to connect everything with anything and to be able to control it and do anything with it. So we decided to focus our product on both of those attributes. How can you do something with lighting to do that nobody else can do with solid-state technology? And how can you also go after a market that was being driven down by, no more 100-watt light bulbs? So it was regulations being implemented. So I'm going to play this video.
Making light out of a semiconductor. Who would have thought that that would be something? And yet I wake up fascinated by how much potential that technology has to transform our lives at many levels. We're sitting here today in University of Phoenix Stadium in Phoenix, Arizona, on the verge of lighting the first NFL stadium with LED technology. The benefits of the LED lights is just a no-brainer. Energy savings of upwards of 70%. They put off way less heat than the metal halide fixtures, so their air conditioning load should be less, and the lighting is better. I think the NFL...
Damn computer technology.
Is really going to be happy with the lighting quality. It's much different and much better than the metal halide.
We've gone in and replaced 700 and some odd lights with 312 lights because of the capability of the output of this light.
I think Ephesus did a lot more on the homework on the light itself
than anybody else did. They were very active in trying to put together a good lamp for stadium versus just putting an LED light out there. I saw their lamp, I saw the competitor's lamp. I was very impressed by theirs, but I wasn't as impressed by the other two.
It really came down to the product, and all of our dealings with them have been great. They've been very responsive. They've delivered on every point thus far that we've asked them to deliver on.
Throughout the process of us being hired by the stadium folks to work directly with Ephesus has been nothing but spectacular. I can't think of a project recently that has gone as smooth as this project has with Ephesus.
Being in an NFL stadium, with more you achieve in the lighting industry. We built the biggest light, the baddest light, the brightest light.
The light's more natural, it's more energy efficient, it's more maintenance, it's got controllability and intelligence and LED technology designed properly. It's causing people to look and say, hey, that's pretty cool. It's exciting.
I'm just going to go through a couple of these things real quickly, but I kind of told the story, everything about it right there. You know, so that was our product that you see. You can see it on this building. When we went to the Tech Garden too, we had nothing. We had an LED chip, and to go and to invest in heavily into capital investments that I didn't realize how much money it takes to invest into a tooling. You know, to go buy a die cast, to go make an aluminum extrusion, or to make a die cast tool, I figured, it's a few $100. No, several hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's not like you're doing software development for a startup company. We're a manufacturing company. So we took it one step further, not just coming up with an idea, but we actually built a product, and the investment into that capital investment was very significant investment, where I was mortgaging everything possible under this time. I had rented everything we basically had from it. And the great thing was is that we were able to pull together with Mike a way to raise some capital. Going and incorporating, we actually generated some stock, and we were able to sell to family and friends. Some of my friends are in here who I sold it to, who are very happy now with the transition. But we were the leaders. We led with technology development. We drove innovation from technology development. We focused on the player, the fan, the experience of HTTP. You know, we created innovative solutions, and we were the thought leaders in this. So, when I talked about the custom chip, this is a chip we actually built. We actually built it from a grant right here out of the Syracuse Tech Garden. It was a very complex technology that led us into building this unique LED chip that allowed us to build the brightest light. Not only did we build the brightest light with this chip and this technology, we didn't use the same chip today, but we took this technology and it allowed us to build LED chips. So all of our chips are custom made for broadcasting. We knew we had to work with the broadcasting industry to be very successful. Like Linda said, who is your customer at the end? We knew we had to sell to NHL. We knew we had to sell to NBC, CBS. Those are the guys who are going to evaluate. So this is a custom chip that's unique bandwidth and matched for 4K, 8K, 16K television. It's a very unique LED chip. Like I said, why? Because the human eye, the spectrum of the human eye is not the same as the camera. So we had to design that chip that was actually made from a spectrum of light for RGB that is made for high definition camera. We won't go into it, but again, I want to share with you, we didn't do this by ourselves. We were just in a tech garden with a couple of us, but we partnered with key people, and that was the thing. It was not inventive syndrome that I didn't have. I focused on the semiconductor companies. We focused on large chip. We worked with Freescale. We worked with Cypress companies. We worked with RF companies, Anarin Microwave. They were building for the radio systems. We said, hey, we can take your radio and incorporate it into our lights. We can use your military protocol to talk wirelessly with it. I worked with power companies. We built the most efficient power supply. There was no way you could build this light unless you could build a power supply. 1,200 watt power supply. In my days at Lockheed Martin, that would have been the size of a desk. And we built it 28 inches in diameter. And we developed it right in the tech garden. Now, we work with materials companies. We work with materials companies. And why I say that's important now, as soon as we lit the Super Bowl, Dow Corning now works with us directly. Every light today is made with plastics, polycarbonate, acrylic, or glass. We built silicone lens and the technology that they were using for caulking that we're using for silicone now is one of the best transmissivities of light. So we enable Dow Chemical now to get into the lighting market. We again work with LED companies. We work with, you know, Cree and Lumileds and the Chia. We've taken their market segment that they're using, making commercials that they're lighting the Super Bowl, even though we're lighting it. You know, things like that we're doing with the lighting companies. I think the biggest thing we did was really work with the broadcasting and high definition companies. You know, we would purposely fly, sit in the trucks, and see what the broadcasters were seeing as the light was being driven down onto that steel. And again, it was all, you know, Syracuse University, SyracuseCoE, we worked with closely with Clarkson and RTI and Cornell and Binghamton to develop this technology. And what we have done now, we're the industrial leaders. We have over 42 patents on our technology, or provisional patents and patents that we filed. When you think about that in a short period of time, a lot of these didn't get filed until I sold the company because it's very expensive to file for a patent. But it allowed us not to sell from the royalties from that as a company startup. What I used it for was to box out my competition. So what I did is I was able to box General Electric out, was to box out Philips, was to box out anybody else. And hopefully I was strong enough they would knock my competition down. And we did. GE's not in the business. Philips is not in the business. Everybody got out of the business. I only had one competitor, and it's Musco Lighting. Musco has been around for 50 years. They do all the traditional metal halide lighting today. So we knocked out all the big boys except for one company. Musco is a billion-dollar company, 1,400 employees. And our big success was when we lit the Super Bowl, we took away their first project. And as soon as we lit that Super Bowl, the day after, I got my second biggest project, the Minnesota Vikings. The Minnesota Vikings, that was a new build. Musco, that's what their favorite sweet spot is. They love new builds. We were able to secure that. Then immediately we got the Miami Dolphins. We got the Atlanta Falcons. And history's been going on. This month, how many baseball stadiums? 3 Major League Baseball stadiums.
There's 4 that went out to bid.
And I forget they are who the baseball we got.
Anaheim, Twins, and Cleveland Indians.
Okay. So every month, every day, it's a story of major. And we go to these games, we go to the events. And I just want to share, look, here's our private development. You know, we started with nothing. One light, it's hanging. That's a and we've taken it now where I don't even know how many, and why leave now full time with us over that. This is lighting. Full time. We work for 60 hours a week. It's pretty part time. But we have all of our new product launches for us, and every day we're turning around launching new products from our innovation. We formed a team. We got a great R&D group. We got a great engineering team, and he helped us put the process into taking it from an idea to launching it into production. And we do all the manufacturing up in Ogdensburg at Anson. We actually even built an extra building up there for us. We actually did some manufacturing in Cleveland, and now we're doing some in Vicksburg, Mississippi. So we're really taking it quite a bit. I'll just show you one other thing. We talked about entertainment, and real quick. This is what some of our lights can do. All wireless control. This is the auditorium over at Utica. Also the Syracuse War Memorial. I'll jump right to the in here. But just to let you know some of the things that we've done, 2011 we were the first to light. I'll show you one last video.
The partnership with Emesis was unbelievable for us to bring LED lighting to Global Partner Arlington. Our goal was to exceed all expectations in both the league office, with fans, and with our players. We've done a lot of research and looked into a lot of different folks, and Emesis came with a solution to bring LED field lighting for the Rangers, really to bring the best experience for our fans, our players, everybody, and took it to a whole different level.
System that has the capability to be color temperature tuned, that is able to save energy of probably over 75% here, is all going to be wireless control. Each LED lighting fixture has addressable channels because we're able to push firmware software up to that light. We're able to create exciting scenes here, entertainment scenes, create a chase, a paparazzi, lightning, a fireworks show, without even having fireworks.
We've worked with our broadcast partner, Fox Sports Southwest, to check and see how it impacts them, how it impacts the fan experience. Are you losing lights in the stands? How do you make sure you're safe for the fans, have a high quality product for the players? We also worked with an engineering firm to make sure that they were comfortable with it, along with working with Major League Baseball.
This is a 6X camera being replayed. It's showing no flicker at all. Everything looks perfectly clean. No video loss. It works pretty good.
The light level has allowed me to leave the iris a lot further closed, which enables our camera guys to have a lot better depth of field. So we've gained probably 3 f-stops on almost every camera here, plus the color temperature of the lights starting from dusk to full darkness is so close to dusk that there's very little color temperature change. You have to change into the camera to make it look right.
We had 780 fixtures. We were not energy efficient. So you think about all of these things, then you throw in the fact that we can change the game presentation. We're more efficient with energy. All of those things play in, and we have a better product for our players and for our fans, which is always our ultimate goal. So for us, it's off the charts.
That's my story. There we go.
Joe, can I first just tell you how proud I am of you? I just have to say, I mean, we had so much fun in those early years. We really felt like renegade pirates, right?
Yeah, oh yeah.
You are one of the truest entrepreneurs I've ever met. I mean, your ability from the beginning to recognize the importance of partnerships and collaboration, the number of people you brought in at the very beginning of the journey, and then your single-minded drive, vision, and determination in the face of, and Ed will remember this because we did this together, how hard it was to find those first early adopters, right? And how many doors we opened and together, and how many no's you got, and yet you kept persevering, you kept innovating, you kept pushing through because you always had this end game in mind. So how did you do that in the face of, for an entrepreneur? You know, that early part of the journey is so hard.
It is.
And yet you kept at it, and look at what you achieved. That's why I'm just so proud of you.
Thank you.
You know, how did you manage to do that?
My wife.
That's actually true.
If Amy was here right with me today, it's true. It was determination. I wasn't going to let anything get in my way. And I knew we had a product. I knew I had a market. And like I said, it's the people that helped me around me, that shared with me that there was such a market. You know, Linda showed me, look at how, and I looked at that market. I never forget when I went and looked, all the lighting, where is it going? And, you know, the deregulations, that nobody's in this lighting market. So I said, man, that's a position you want to get into. How do you get in there? So A lot of the other market I got out of because I saw if I would have stayed in the street lighting market, I would have been chewed up by Eaton. I would never made a product. I would have got hit by GE or somebody. I would have never made it. But we went into this very niche market. We solved nobody, and we continued to just go, go, go. And it wasn't for Linda and those guys bringing people into the office. And I got introduced by the race park. That's actually how the story really got started. It was Glenn Donnelly, that race park is still not built, said, Joe, I need a light for that race park. And he came into the tech garden and he said, I need a stadium light. It needs to be at this cost. It needs to be at this. And I decided to myself, okay, we're going to go build it. And we built it. And the race park not built, but it was the beautiful situation that Mike Lorenz and myself carried that light over our shoulder. And I got on an airplane. That was a heavy light, and we carried it around the country. And let me tell you, this one little part that I think was very successful for getting into the Super Bowl was that they were a very forward-thinking technology company, a facility. If you saw that turf that came in and out of that stadium, they wanted to do something very advanced. We were blessed when the lights went off in 2013 in the Super Bowl. That helped our cause. And then we were able to come in there, and they wanted the tech. I'm very thankful that the University of Phoenix and that whole facility team didn't come to the tech garden, because I was in the tech garden, I only had one light. One light. And it wasn't even a light. I sold them. And we hurried, and we said, we got to go build this thing. And they helped me find a manufacturing location. We helped find. And we're building now. I can't lost count. We built this month. How many we're going to ship?
2,000 lights a month.
A month we ship now of stadium lights. And some of these other lights, thousands a month. Thousands.
So Joe, in the beginning was the street light, and then there was the high bay light. And then you made somehow the sale to the War Memorial in downtown. So can you talk about that? I mean, how did you make, that was your first arena.
That was our first. We was approached, introduced again through the county. And Linda, it was great as a tech guy because she would bring in all these people, and I said, Linda, you bring them in, you bring them into our office, bring those people through. And we were approached by the county. Hey, Howard Dolgan said, last year my lights went off a couple times, and we had to go into the third period couldn't turn the lights back on. It went into the third period, they kept going off, coming back on. It takes 20 minutes to warm the lights back up. So the game was going on forever. And the Syracuse War Memorial wants to fix the lighting system. And we walked in there and we said, we can build you a light. Again, I only had one light built. And it was in a box. We hung in the tech garden. We had them look underneath it. And they go, oh, yeah, that's it. And we needed 147 of them. And we hurried and we built it and we certified it. And as those lights were being hung up, we were actually sticking the UL sticker on the lights being. But we were given. There was those people who stretched out here in the community, and those people who stuck their neck out, who wanted to take it, are the ones that, it's the story that I wouldn't be here today. It was the county, it was the SyracuseCoE, it was Linda, it was everybody. It was, I say to myself, I'm not the smartest person in the world, I'm not, but I learned to reach out and touch a lot of people and make this fun, and make it a lot of fun, and we're having a blast today. I was just talking about it. We're advancing the technology. We're doing some things that would blow your mind away at some of the things that we're doing down there at our new company. We've doubled the size. We're up to 52 employees in this office now down in Syracuse. I don't even know the people on the list anymore. I look at them and I go, oh, I know he works for us. We have over 100 kind of help build lights up in Ogdensburg. And now with the acquisition of Eaton, the company was growing so fast. This is the story about another part of the chapter. You go through the prototype, you go through the manufacturing. Then you get to the point, you start running out of you want to scale, And when you scale from a $10 million to a $100 million company, you need some big injection of capital. And that's what Eaton was able to do. Eaton came along, a $20 billion company, and approached me and said, would you be interested in selling? I was given a couple opportunities of other companies, and I said yes, under one condition, under multiple conditions, but we have to stay in Syracuse. We're going to stay right down, and we're going to keep the operations deficits, and we're going to grow this business, and we're going to keep it going under the direction of the Ephesus leadership team, and that's the fun part. And how we're recruiting a lot because people, it's a startup company, and so we can bring in high-tech people. I can get folks from all over. I can be selective. Everybody wants to work now in Syracuse for a high-tech company. It's a startup environment. You walk in there, you're working on high-tech stuff with $20 billion sugar daddy.
So it's a little bit not clear to me. So what's your role from the beginning? Are you the scientist? Are you the one who runs the company? Who are the ones who, what's the structure of the leadership?
I was the president and CEO. I was the guy. It was myself, and I hired, and we was 3 or 4 of us. Myself, my wife.
And do you have a background in science or sales?
I'm a chemical engineer and electrical engineer. So it was my idea. It was my idea all from the beginning. We have, like I said, all the patents, or all of our patents. It's amazing to see this. Every day we write. We just submitted another 6 this month. We're interacting with the light now. We talk to the light. We can pick up information from the players on the field. We can get information from helmets, from wearables, working with the scoreboard, player, and it's all that Internet of Things. We're working with street lights. We can control street lights. We're integrating technologies onto a bigger platform. It's all about connectivity. So as soon as we go to a stadium, we create a kind of connectivity. But it was all generated from South and a team of engineers.
So I have a question. So when you started about in this lighting business, so did you first create the technology and then figure out the market, or how did you go about that?
It was worked on the technology, but it was the understanding that I had to have a business plan. And if I didn't have a business plan or an idea where to go, the applications, it would have still been in a sandbox somewhere. As a matter of fact, that technology, I don't think would have ever gotten to the next phase of even prototyping. So it was somebody saying that you've got to take it to the next step. And that's what the Tech Garden, that's what the Syracuse Center of Excellence did for me. Helped me introduce and helped me take it to the next and the next and the next. And it just took off like a hockey stick.
So you got a lot of success with sports stadiums and doing parking and things like that. Do you see other applications that you guys are going to get into, indoor greenhouses or consumer lighting? Are you trying to stay? Is the market not run out for you yet in terms of your existing verticals?
So how large do you think the sports lighting municipal market is for sports lighting?
How large?
How large?
Extremely.
Extremely.
5 billion maybe.
Yeah, it's about 8 to 10 billion. So who are the players in it? Nobody. We're the only ones. Ephesus, we're the only ones that are in them. We can take, and you can see the lights that are up here. We have just built it. When we went to the Super Bowl, we knew we had to build a light to get name recognition, to get branding, to build the brand. We made the brand. The day we did that Super Bowl, everybody knew Ephesus. You should have seen the press releases. I never saw my phone ring so much in my whole life. There was just press releases after press releases. It was just gone crazy. But we knew in the background that we had to get into it because there's only like a $2 billion professional market. It's an $8 billion municipal market. In the background, we were working on a light that could go into the municipal market. That's what Eaton wanted from us. And so that light now competes with mental health lights on every school district. We lit Baldwinsville. We've lit CNS. We're going to light Bishop Ludden. We're going to light my alumni. We're doing everything with that municipal light. It's huge. It's a huge market. So the market's huge, not only for lighting, it's the Internet of Things. As I said, lighting is only probably about, right now, 30% of what we do. When we go in there, we built a whole structure around it. I think last year we did more on the controls than we did lighting, the control system, wearables talking to it, trending data, getting information back, selling a service so that when you walk up to it, you can slide your card, you're going to buy time on that baseball field for 2 hours, and you get charged for that time that you turn those lights on and turn. That's the technology where it's going. It's a service model with Internet of Things.
Question back.
I
Have you expanded it to any other country?
Yeah. We have sold, help me, Lee.
We delivered a whole arena in Peru last month. It's kind of scary to make sure that everything's going to work when it arrives. And probably 500 now to Australia, maybe 800 to Australia.
Australian Open.
New Labour International Tennis Center in Australia this last month.
And I also heard over in Afghanistan, we do a lot of mock lighting, like here, the light part, we lit Afghanistan, and I heard, like on the news, it was sad, but we lit one of the bases over in Afghanistan. It was bombed yesterday. Some civilians, soldiers were killed there, but we lit that whole base also over in Afghanistan. So we're international now, Eaton allowing us, but we're struggling with that. How do we go international? That's a whole nother business. You wake up every day just nightmares of things. That's why Lee's helping us.
Need more people have more nightmares.
Now that you have the tech and you have the sugar daddy, is there an aspect of a different industry that's maybe more of a pet project that's not quite as profitable as the sports realm that you think that this would be applicable and if it's doing?
So I've been introduced. I mean, this is one thing I think I ask everybody wants to be an engineer is work with the universities. Go to Cornell, especially the high-end tech. I spent a lot of time at RPI. I spent a lot of time at Cornell or Binghamton or whatever. We hire a lot of them from there. RPI has the Lighting Research Center. It has the LISA program. It has a capstone project. I was just there this week, and I had like 5 or 6 things that are just going through my head right now that are just incredible, that professors have developed the technology and they don't know what to do with it. So if you have a business mind, if you know how to get it out of that university, take it through Syracuse's program here. You can basically do anything. You don't have to know anything. I knew nothing about lighting. Zero. But was able to take that idea, bring it through the Syracuse system, and grow it to where it is today.
Josh has a question. One more, Josh.
So,
I'm taking up everybody.
You run a really impressive hardware startup or company now. As someone else who runs the hardware that sells a physical product, what's some advice that you could give me as an entrepreneur?
So running the hardware side, so building the hardware, it takes capital.
Yeah.
And that's the hard. Getting a hardware, it takes capital. I'll be honest, to start this company, I probably put over $3 million in capital. So it takes a lot of money, and it wasn't money out of my own. I had to borrow from friends, from family. And if that failed, I would have been the first guy kicked out of this town. Because I know a couple people in this room would have kicked me out there. But it was the capital, it's hard. And to raise that money, you had to have a good business plan. It goes back to Lynn. How are you going to tell Lee Davis I want to borrow money from him, or you, I want to borrow money, or man, it's hard to go, I want to borrow $100,000 or $200,000. Are you going to give it to me? If I don't have a good business plan and don't have a market to go, that's the hard part of it. Raising that capital. That's why I said to do something that's a software nature, it's a little bit easier for the do. Buying it's hard.
Jim, I know you're short on time, but I just have to say one thing. So we haven't met yet, but I run the Tech Guard now, so I'm in a long line of managers, and we talk about your success story, even though we've never met at a much lighter company. But it's so refreshing to hear, and I just want to say this because Josh just asked the question. There's something in vogue right now where basically you can go ahead and raise money and start your company with a 10-deck slide. And it's so refreshing to hear you and Linda to go ahead.
It was not a 10-deck slide, was it, Joe?
But I've seen that more and more from the experience.
It was a full-blown 40-page, did your homework on every single page, deep dive on everything.
Yeah, that's
what I will say that's what I push. And I will say that does make a big difference.
Mm-hmm. Having somebody having that knowledge of making sure that you have a really strong business case, and then like Linda helping me, and then having Lee introduce me to like Mike Lorenz, who's a businessman who could tear it apart and just rip that thing apart and help me put it back together, a business plan that was believable. And to get that first sale, to have these lights here in the SyracuseCoE, to have to bring customers in here and go, look, it's a viable product. Take them over to Baldwinsville and show them the lights in the back. That was huge, huge, huge. And it didn't cost me that much, but it was huge. I made money here, right? Is that right?
I want to thank our presenters, Josh, Professor Luke, Joe. I want to thank Tim for putting together the program, Tammy and Carrie for all the support, and thank you all for joining us. We've got some refreshments outside.